Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Chalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadhirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna, devotees. And my best wishes and greetings to everyone on this most auspicious occasion of the appearance of Lord Nityananda Triyodashi. Srila Prabhupada said that for followers of Lord Chaitanya, these 2 days, Gaur Purnima and Nityananda Triyodashi, are the most important days, festival days for us. Because Lord Chaitanya came to give us this mercy of chanting of the holy name, and Nityananda Prabhu was this representative to be able to give it to the most fallen. And we need the mercy of Lord Nityananda Prabhu in our lives to be able to make any progress in spiritual life. Henonitai dine bai, Radha Krishna pai vinai. Drida kari, dharonitai pai. Ratan Das Thakur is saying that without the mercy of Lord Nityananda, we cannot get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And we cannot get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, we cannot get the mercy of Radha Krishna. So with great determination, hold on to the feet of Lord Nityananda. So today we will read from the 7th canto, 7th chapter, 1st verse. The chapter is entitled, What Prahlad Learned in the Womb. And as part of the discussion on this verse, let's see if we can maybe glorify Lord Nityananda as well. So this is the text 1. Sri Narada Uvacha Evam Daityasutai Prushto Mahabhagavato Suraha Uvacha Tan Smayamanaha Smaran Madanubhashitam Evam Daityasutai Prushto Mahabhagavato Suraha Uvacha tasmayamanaha smaran madanubhashitam. I'll read it one more time. Evam daityasutaihi prushto mahabhagavato suraha uvacha tansmayamanaha smaran madanubhashitam. Devotees can chant.
Sri Narada Uvacha Evam Daitya Sutai Prishto Maha Bhagavato Suraha Uvacha Tan Smayamana Smaran Mad Anubhashitam
Evam Tayatra Sutaprasto Maha Bhagavato Suraha Uvachatan Smayam Naha Smaramad Anubhashitam.
Shri Naraduvacha Evam Daitya Sutta Prishto Mahabhagavato Suraha Uvachatan Smayamana Smaran Madanubhashitam.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll read the synonyms. Sri Narada Uvacha, the great saint Narada Muni said, Evam, thus, Daityasutaihi, by the sons of the demons. Prishtaha, being questioned. Mahabhagavataha, the exalted devotee of the Lord. Asuraha, born in a family of demons. Uvacha, spoke. Tan, unto them, the sons of the demons. Samyamanaha, smiling. Smaran, remembering. Mat anubhashitam, what was spoken by me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Narada Muni said, although Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of asuras, he was the greatest of all devotees. Having thus been questioned by his class friends, the sons of the asuras, he remembered the words spoken to him by me and replied to his friends as follows. And the purport, when he was in the womb of his mother, Prahlad Maharaj listened to the words of Narada Muni. One cannot imagine how the baby in embryo could hear Narada. But this is spiritual life. Progress in spiritual life cannot be obstructed by any material condition. This is called ahaituki apratihata. Reception of spiritual knowledge is never checked by any material condition. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj, from his very childhood, spoke spiritual knowledge to his class friends, and certainly it was very effective, although all of them were children. I'll read the translation again. Narada Muni said, although Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of asuras, he was the greatest of all devotees. Having thus been questioned by his class friends, the sons of his asuras, he remembered the words spoken to him by me and replied to his friends as follows. So the context of this verse, as we've been reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, in the prior chapter was how Prahlad Maharaj instructed his demonic classmates. And very beautiful chapter. Is this one of the most wonderful chapters in terms of how we can dedicate our lives to become Krishna conscious, where he talks about how from the tender age of childhood we should focus on spiritual life. Kaumarat acharet pragyo, dharman bhagavatam. So that whole beautiful verse of how this human body is such a, although it's common like other bodies, it's got a special characteristic that we can dedicate our lives to becoming Krishna conscious. Unlike other bodies, like animal bodies and other bodies, they are challenged with the ability to actually think about why they're suffering and so on. They don't think like that. But humans have the ability. So Prahlad Maharaj says that those who don't do that, they simply waste their lives. And he very beautifully enumerates the 100-year lifespan of a human being. He says that maximum lifespan is 100 years. And in this day and age, we rarely find people who live to 100. Right? So most people don't make it to 100. But even if they do, Prahlad Maharaj says that for people who are materially engrossed, half your life is spent sleeping. The first 20 years are just in childhood play and so on. And the last 20 years in invalidity. And for those who are materially engrossed, even the remaining years are just wasted in trying to acquire wealth and prestige and so on, which will go away anyway. So he basically lays it threadbare and says that really it's just a waste of time. So we should just focus on becoming spiritually advanced. So the classmates ask Prahlad Maharaj that he says, I heard from Narada Muni and that's how I learned all of this. So the classmates innocently ask him that, well, we are in this classroom and we only hear from the sons of Sukracharya, Chanda Amarka. They are our teachers, they are our masters. So there's no opportunity to hear from, we don't even know who Narada Muni is. And I don't know how you heard from him. How is it possible for a personality like Narada Muni to actually come here and give you instructions? So when they ask that question, this is the chapter, the beginning of the chapter where Prahlad Maharaj explains how he heard from Narada Muni. This first text is Narada Muni speaking. So if you remember the context of the whole conversation, this is a conversation between Yudhishthira Maharaj and Narada Muni. And so Yudhishthira Maharaj begins this whole canto by asking, if the Lord is impartial, then how did he kill Hiranyakashipu and how did he protect Prahlad? That doesn't seem like it's impartial. And he also asked questions about how is it possible for a father to have such enmity towards his son that he's finding all sorts of ways to kill him. So that's how this whole chapter starts. So it's a conversation between Narada Muni and Yudhishthira Maharaj. This whole canto starts that way. So within the conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami, there are a lot of these inner loop conversations. And one of the inner loop conversations is conversation between Narada and Yudhishthira Maharaj. And so Narada Muni is now continuing the story to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he tells him that when he was asked, when Prahlad was asked by his classmates, how did he learn from Narada Muni, he remembered the words spoken to him by me and replied as follows. So he remembered the words that were spoken, and the words that were spoken by Narada Muni were spoken not in any other circumstance, but in the womb of his mother. And you will read that in subsequent verses in this chapter, where Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother, and he heard the words of Narada Muni. Now, the position of Narada Muni is very, very unique in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I've heard some scholars speak about Srimad Bhagavatam is essentially, of course, it's a glorification of the Lord, it's a glorification of the book representation of Krishna, and as Srinath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the great associates of Lord Chaitanya. This is not Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this is Srinath Chakravarti Thakur. And he spoke this verse, the 5 essential truths of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Aradhyo Bhagavan Prajesh Tanaya, many of you know this verse. Tadhama Vrindavanam, Ramya Kachit, Upasana Vrajavadhu, Vargya Naya Kalpita, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Avalam. Those are the 5 essential truths of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. That Lord Sri Krishna, right? Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajesha Tanaya, right? So the most worshipable Lord is Brajesha Tanaya, the one who is the son of Brajesha or Nanda Maharaj. So that aspect of Krishna, who lived in Vrindavan and was son of Nanda Maharaj, is the most worshipable Lord. Not even the Lord of Dwaraka, not even the Lord of Vaikuntha, but that Krishna, who was the son of the king of Raja, is the most worshipable Lord. Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajeshane Tadhama Vrindavanam, and his holy abode is Vrindavan. And that is the most worshipable Lord. Ramya Kvachit Upasana Vrajavadhu. So the worship or the devotional service rendered by the Vrajavadhus or the gopis of Vrindavan is the highest. That is the 3rd essential truth. Vargena Ya Kalpita. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam. So the 4th essential truth of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition is that Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest evidence, highest pramana. Pramana means evidence. It's the highest evidence of anything. So if there is any kind of confusion about what this Shastra says or that Shastra says, everything is resolved by referring to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest scriptural evidence. And Prema Pumarto Mahan, that's the 5th one. So Pumartha means Purushartha, same thing. Puma, Purusha, same meaning. Purusha means, of course, Purusha, the ultimate meaning of Purusha means the Lord himself, but then Purusha also means the living entity, Jiva. In this context, it means Jiva. So Pumartha means the objectives of humans. So typically there are 4 Purusharthas that are discussed, right? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. You perform some religious activities according to rules and regulations, and because of doing that, you receive some material benefits, Artha, and then with that material benefit, you enjoy some Kama or sense gratification, and ultimately you realize that that's not the objective of life, and you progress towards liberation or moksha. So those are the 4 Purusharthas, the Chatur Purusharthas that are described in Shastra, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. But then the Panchama Purushartha, or the 5th most important, this is over the 4, more important than the 4, is Prema. The Prema Pumartho Mahan. So the highest Purushartha is Prema. And Prema to who? Prema to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, that was described as the 1st essential truth. So Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the highest truth as far as our Gaudiya Vaishnava traditions are concerned. Prema Portaman. So this Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that these are the essential principles of Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So anybody would ask you that what are the primary beliefs or principles of Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition? This is what it is. These are the five. Right? Lord Shri Krishna is the most worshipable Lord. His holy abode is Vrindavan is most worshipable. The gopis of Vrindavan are the highest devotees of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest evidence, and to develop love for Krishna is the highest goal of life. So these are the five. So the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam is stressed more than any other scripture. And Srimad Bhagavatam is full of glories of the devotees of the Lord and the Lord. But a parallel track in the Srimad Bhagavatam across all cantos is the glorification of Narada Muni. Right from the first canto, we hear about how Narada Muni was a son of a maidservant, and how he executed penances and then saw the Lord. And then the Lord told him that in this lifetime you cannot see me anymore. But in the next lifetime, he went back into the body of the Lord and then came out as the son of Brahma. And then he initiated so many devotees across the Srimad Bhagavatam, right from Dhruva Maharaj and so many other devotees. Right? Prahlad Maharaj, obviously, we heard about. And so across Srimad Bhagavatam, the presence of Narada Muni is in every canto, where he's either initiating or inspiring some devotee, or speaking about how the Lord can actually deliver us. So he speaks to so many different devotees across the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in one sense, right, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is glorification of Narada Muni as well. And the reason I make that point is that Narada Muni is the spiritual master of even Vyasadeva. Right? So he's a spiritual master of Vyasadeva. So we receive Srimad Bhagavatam because of the mercy of Narada Muni. So the most essential scripture that we have, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, was given to us by the mercy of Narada Muni. Because if you remember in the first canto, in the fifth chapter, when Vyasadeva is despondent, he's not sure what he should do, because he's not feeling, in spite of writing all the scriptures and dividing the Vedas and so on, he's not feeling satisfied. That's when Narada Muni appears. And he speaks to him. He asks him, "Oh my Prabhu, what is the reason for your despondency? You're such a wonderful personality. You've written so many books." And Vyasadeva is honest with himself. He says, "My dear Lord, please don't flatter me. Please tell me what is my deficiency. Why am I feeling unhappy?" And at that time, Narada Muni takes the opportunity to speak the truth. He says, because he wants to see if Vyasadeva is ready to hear. Right? So we're always eager to give our feedback. Right? And this is a very beautiful section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where you see the sophistication of Narada Muni. Right? Narada Muni, of course, is such a great personality. He could have immediately come barging in and blasted Vyasadeva. He didn't do that. He just came and praised him. And when Vyasadeva expressed his desire to hear the truth, that's when Narada Muni spoke. And Narada Muni blasted Vyasadeva at that point. He said, well, Jugupsitam, he uses the word, Jugupsitam, which means abominable. He tells Vyasadeva that the scriptures he wrote are abominable, because humanity in general is interested in sense gratification anyway. And you have made it such that in your scriptures that you've given them a way to enjoy dharma, artha, kama. And they get so engrossed in the dharma, artha, kama that they forget about moksha. So you've made it legitimized. You've essentially legitimized people's practice of dharma just for the purpose of getting artha and kama. So when dharma is used primarily for the purpose of getting artha or some kind of opulence, and artha is used primarily for the purpose of kama, then people forget about anything spiritual. So that was the essence of what Narada Muni told Vyasadeva. And he said, the reason why you're unhappy is because you've done that. Instead, you should glorify the Supreme Lord. You should glorify directly Krishna. You've indirectly glorified Krishna in many ways, but people are so foolish in Kali Yuga that they will never catch it. They will never grasp it. They will just be stuck in this dharma, artha, kama cycle. They will never come out of it. So directly glorify Krishna, which is how Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. And then the Chatushloki Bhagavatam is there in the second canto as well. The Ahameva Sameva Agre, those verses which all the devotees know. So this whole Bhagavatam is glorification of Narada Muni in one sense. And Narada Muni represents the spiritual master. Right? He is the spiritual master of all these great devotees. And he's also a spiritual master in our line because he's the guru of Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva is the spiritual master of Madhvacharya. And Madhvacharya is the spiritual master of our line, who is the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri and then Ishwara Puri, Lord Chaitanya. And so we come in that line of Narada Muni. Right? So even in our deity worship, we follow Narada Pancharatra Vidhi. So we very much disciples in the disciplic succession of Narada Muni. And why that is relevant today specifically is that Narada Muni represents the spiritual master, and ultimately the essence of the spiritual master is Lord Balaram. Right? The essence of spiritual master is Lord Balaram. And with Lord Balaram being the essence of the spiritual master, right, Nityananda Prabhu represents that. Lord Nityananda is none other than Balaram himself, as mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as well. And you can hear those verses where Kaviraj Goswami says that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, and Lord Nityananda is the direct Balaram. In the fifth chapter of the Adi Lila, I just would like to read some of those verses from the Adi Lila 5th chapter, which is the glorification of Lord Nityananda Balaram. There are some very beautiful verses that describe this, and I just wanted to read maybe a couple of these verses where in text 4, Kaviraj Goswami says, Sarva Avatari Krishna Swayam Bhagavan Tahara Dvitiya Deha Shri Balaram. Translation is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the fountainhead of incarnation, all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. And text 5. Ekahi Swarupa Donhe Bhinna Matrakay Adyakaya Vyuha Krishna Lila Rasahai. These two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Lord Balaram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. So Srila Prabhupada says that Balaram is the Swamsha expansion of the Lord, and therefore there is no difference in the potency between Krishna and Balaram. The only difference is their bodily structure. As the first expansion of Godhead, Balaram is the chief deity among the first quadruple forms, and he is the foremost assistant of Sri Krishna in his transcendental activities. I remember one pastime that I heard. This happened in Kumbh Mela when Srila Prabhupada had taken his disciples to Kumbh Mela, and there were a few devotees who were there with him, and Mother Yamuna and Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj were both there. And so they were having a discussion among themselves where, so Tamal Krishna Goswami was saying that that the difference between Krishna and Balaram, that one said that the only difference between Krishna and Balaram is Krishna is black and Balaram is fair, is white, in one sense, right? So that's the difference. And the bodily complexion is different. Otherwise, there is no difference. And Mother Yamuna said that, well, the difference between Krishna and Balaram is that only Krishna does Rasa Leela with the gopis. Balaram has a different Leela, but then the primary Rasa Leela is done only by Krishna. That is the main difference. So then they could not resolve it, so they went to Srila Prabhupada and they asked him, Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Goswami is saying that the only difference between Krishna and Balaram is that one is black, the other is white. And so Srila Prabhupada said, you're right. Then Mother Yamuna said, but I was saying that the only difference is the Rasa Leela is the only difference between Krishna and Balaram. Srila Prabhupada said, you're right. So they said, well, how can we both be right? Somebody argued saying, how can they both be right? I mean, she's saying this and he's saying that. So which is right? Srila Prabhupada told him, you're right. Essentially saying that all these differences all get rationalized in the inconceivable nature of Lord Sri Krishna, that is simultaneously one and different from Balaram. So in one sense, there is no difference between Krishna and Balaram, but in the sense of the Leela, Sri Balaram is the, Srila Prabhupada used to use the phrase, servitor personality of Godhead. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and Sri Balaram is the servitor personality of Godhead. So he is a personality of Godhead whose primary objective is to serve Lord Sri Krishna. So in text 6 now, Kaviraj Goswami makes that connection. He says, Shri Krishna Navadipe Sri Chaitanya Chandra, Shri Balarama Sange Sri Nityananda. That original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. And this most famous verse, text 7, which Kaviraj Goswami says, Sankarshana Karanato Yashai, Garbho Deshai, Chapayob Deshai, Sheshasya Yasyam Shakala Nityananda Kerama Sharanam Mamastu. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshana, Sheshanag, and the Vishnus who lie on the Karana ocean, Garbha ocean, and the ocean of milk are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. So this is the 7th of the 14 verses that appear in the Mangalacharan. So if you remember how Chaitanya Charitamrita structure is, the first 14 verses of the Adi Lila are the Mangalacharan verses. They describe Chaitanya Tattva, Nityananda Tattva, Advaita Tattva, Pancha Tattva. They describe that in sequence. And the first 7 chapters of the Adi Lila are simply but an expansion of the first 14 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Which is why sometimes devotees struggle to get past the first 7 chapters before they get into the Leela, because the first 7 chapters of the Adi Leela are just philosophy of establishing Chaitanya Tattva, Nityananda Tattva, and so on. So the point here is that Lord Nityananda Balaram is none other than Lord Balaram himself, who represents the Guru Tattva, whose energy is represented by Narada Muni, which is connected to this verse. And so we have to beg for the mercy of the spiritual master. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya aprasadat nagati kutopi. Dhyayan soam tasya yasya sandhyam vande guru Sri Charanarvindam. So this is not just some song that we sing in the morning and forget about it. This is actually the essence of our life. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. So we sing it every day, so we may not really meditate on it, but on this day we should meditate on this particular verse. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. By whose mercy we get Krishna's mercy. Yasya aprasadat nagati kutobi. And if he is not merciful, we do not get Krishna's mercy. Dhyayan stuvamta yasya sandhyam vande guru Sri Charanarvindam. So we meditate on this lotus feet of the spiritual master 3 times a day. At least when we chant our Gayatri, we should meditate on the spiritual master as well. And then through him, meditate on Krishna, that we get the mercy of the Lord. So this whole idea that Sakshat Haritvana Samasta Shastra, this supreme personality of Godhead, represents himself as the energy of the Guru. And this Guru Tattva is Lord Nityananda. So, Dhrudakari Dharonitai Pai. This message given to us by Narottam Das Thakur is that with great determination, hold on to the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, right? Because Lord Chaitanya preached to the classes, the high class personalities like Sarvam Bhattacharya or Prakashanand Saraswati and all these great learned scholars who were just brilliant. Now, I don't know if we consider ourselves in that class. I certainly don't. But Lord Nityananda was so merciful that he preached to the masses. People who had no ability or capability to make spiritual progress, Nityananda Prabhu targeted them. He was Lord Chaitanya's agent to go and target the low class, like Jagai and Madhai. So Lord Nityananda Prabhu was specifically targeting the low class individuals who otherwise would have no opportunity to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And I certainly consider myself in that second category, where we need the mercy of Lord Nityananda to even be able to be qualified to even get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So that is why Lord Nityananda's mercy is so critical in our life. And actually, Kaviraj Goswami specifically says in the Adi Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita that if one were to worship Lord Chaitanya but neglect Lord Nityananda, then he's considered an atheist. You might as well neglect them both. So we have to be very, very grateful to Srila Prabhupada, who gave us the opportunity to worship Gaur Nitai. This concept of worshiping Gaur Nitai together to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya was primarily introduced and expanded by by Srila Prabhupada. Because previously in the Gaudiya Math, it was mostly Radha Krishna and Gauranga, or Gaur Gadadhar, those kind of deities were worshipped. It was not so prominent to have Gaur Nitai deities so much in the Gaudiya Math. But Srila Prabhupada introduced this Gaur Nitai deities. And so we should be very grateful to Srila Prabhupada to give us the opportunity to worship Gaur Nitai and get the mercy of Lord Nityananda specifically, so that we can then progress in our spiritual life. Anyway, I can go on and on about Lord Nityananda and his pastimes and so on, but I will stop here to see if there are any questions or comments from the devotees. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for a great detailed class and the distinctions of the different personalities. In terms of Gaur Nitai deities and Lord Nityananda's mercy, I know when I first became or tried to become a devotee, it was always said that if you're going to have deities, it's good to have Gaur Nitai deities because they are so merciful and forgiving, and they may excuse your um, inexperience in caring for deities. And I'm just wondering, is that what you were alluding to?
Thank you, Mother Jambavati. Yeah, so Gaur Nitai are the most merciful deities. All they need us to do is to raise our hands and chant Hare Krishna. That we can do. Typically, the worship of Radha Krishna deities requires a certain level of internal, external purity, and also the uh, the the process of worshiping Radha Krishna deities is elaborate. Now, even though, and this is just from Naraja Pantaratra and other scriptures, right? Even though we worship Radha Krishna in our temples and other places, the system is that when we actually worship the deities, we're worshiping them in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, because it's a formal worship, right? So although Krishna is informal and he deals with his devotees in a very informal way, right? If you read from Srimad Bhagavatam as well, you always see that Krishna is not very keen on the formal process of honor and so on. He's happier when somebody chastises him as opposed to somebody worships him with Vedic prayers. But of course, when we worship the deities in the temple, when we worship our beloved Radha Damodar, we have a certain system. We follow the times and we have a certain process. We are very, very careful to worship Shri Shri Radha Damodar in a very specific way, because the deities, as Srila Prabhupada taught us, are worshipped in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, in awe and reverence. We cannot just put our arms around the shoulders of Damodar and just be casual about it. We have to be very, very serious and formal about deity worship, because it's a very serious business. It's a very serious business, and we have to be 100% focused on worshiping Lord Shri Krishna on the altar, as he is the king. He's the center of our universe. So there's a very specific process, there's specific mantras of how you worship, how you offer boga. There's very specific standards set in temples on what you offer for boga, what you cannot offer for boga. For instance, in our temples, we typically do not offer anything from can or frozen. We offer fresh. So there's so many rules and regulations we follow how we worship the deity in the temple. We want to be exactly on time. We want to be suchi. We want to be clean. All this is stuff that we have to follow. It's not optional. It's not something that we may or may not follow. But at home, when we have Gaur Nitai deities, they're very merciful. all we need to do is offer whatever we are having, raise our hands and chant Hare Krishna. Of course, we can always improve our standards and do very wonderful worship of the deities, but generally, like in homes, the standard cannot be the same as a temple. And of course, we may not always be suchi when we go in front of the deities. It's not possible that each time you go you offer even a fruit or an apple to the Lord, to Gaurnita deities. You may not be fully in suchi, taking a shower and wearing fresh clothes. It may not be possible in the home, not practical. So for that purpose, Srila Prabhupada specifically recommended devotees to have Gaurnita deities. And ultimately, ours is a preaching mission. Our mission is all about spreading the holy name. So Gaurnita, I came to spread the holy name of the Lord. So having Gaurnita deities also inspires us in that perspective. So of course, there are many, many other detailed reasons from a deity worship perspective that you can speak with the deity service ministry and others. But essentially, the essence is that ultimately they're non-different. Lord Gauranga is non-different from Radha Krishna. So by worshipping Lord Gaurnitai, it's non-different from worshipping Radha Krishna in that sense. So it's not like we get any less benefit. But the advantage is that the level of formality and the level of process that's needed for worshipping Gaurnita deities is a lot less than worshipping Radha Krishna deities. Right? So if a new person who comes starts chanting Hare Krishna, wants to start worshipping deities, then we recommend that you have Gaurnita deities. You don't immediately say, well, directly get Radha Krishna deities, because they may not be up to that standard of whatever worship. Similarly, if you have Shaligram, the standard of worship for Shaligram is even higher. There are certain Shaligram Shilas that can only be worshipped by Naistiki Brahmacharis, or Brahmacharis who've been celibate since childhood and since entire life. Specifically, the Narsingha Shila, the Ugra Narsingha Shila, where Lord Nrsingadev is in his angry mood. He's just emerged from the pillar. That form of Lord Nrsingadev, there is a Shaligram Shila, which is the Ugra Narsingha Shila. Typically, Ugra Narsingha Shilas are not worshipped by anybody other than sannyasis, because you need that level of purity, and celibacy is a given. You have to be 100% celibate throughout your life to even worship a Narsingha Shila. We have that ability even to touch a Narsingha Shila, Ugra Narsingha Shila. So there are so many rules that you have to follow. But then with Gaurnitai, any of us can worship Gaurnitai. So that is a reason why that's recommended by devotees. Does that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Anything else? There's nothing else. I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful Lord Nityananda Appearance Day. May Lord Nityananda's mercy fill your lives with devotion to Lord Shri Krishna, Lord Shri Chaitanya, and Lord Nityananda. Thank
Hare
you very much.
Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
We still have some time on this very special occasion. I would love to hear a little more of Lord Nityananda Leela. If anything comes to your mind, any pastime at all would be delightful to hear.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for prompting me, and I'm happy to share. So there's one pastime that, of course, I'm sure you will hear about Jagai Madhai pastime at some point today. I wanted to maybe just focus on this one pastime that maybe not everybody speaks about so much, is how Lord Chaitanya met Nityananda Prabhu. And so it's so sweet. I felt it was so sweet that, of course, Lord Nityananda was much older than Lord Chaitanya. So he was already a traveling mendicant. And all of you know the story of when he was a little boy, only 12 years old. He was the son of Harai Pandit and Padmavati Ojha. And this was in Ekachakragram. And when he was 12 years old, this unknown sannyasi came, and as the custom of that time, when any mendicant comes, the grahasthas, especially brahmanas, were very eager to welcome that personality into their home, and they would offer all services, including opportunity to cook if they desired to cook, or if they would serve them prasad and so on. And they would also offer them gifts. So when the sannyasi was so pleased with their service, and when he was leaving, Harai Pandit asked him, "So is there anything I can do to serve you? Is there anything I can give you?" And typically you expect somebody to say, "Can you give me some grain so that I can carry it? And so I'll have some grain," or something like that. But that was not what the sannyasi asked. And the sannyasi asked that, "When I travel, I would like to have a traveling companion, and your son is the right companion for me. So I would like to take your son with me." And this was like a thunderbolt to Harai Pandit. And this was a time when such a kind of request was not ignored. In this day and age, we would just say, "No, that's not possible," and that would be the end of it. But Harai Pandit was heartbroken, but he had already given his word that, "I'll give you what you want." And so he agreed, and he told his wife, and wife said that Mother Padmavati said, "Yeah, whatever your desire, I will accept." And although they were completely heartbroken, they sent Lord Nityananda along with this traveling mendicant. He started traveling the world, and when Lord Nityananda was in Vrindavan, that's when he realized that Lord Chaitanya has inaugurated his pastime of Sankirtan. So until the first many years of Lord Chaitanya's life, Lord Chaitanya did not exhibit any symptoms of being a great devotee. So all these associates of Lord Chaitanya were always wondering, when will Lord Chaitanya actually start exhibiting his pastimes as a devotee of the Lord? When will he start preaching the holy name? And that happened after Lord Chaitanya went to Gaya for performing the Shraddha ceremony of his father Jagannath Mishra. And there he met Ishwarapuri, who initiated him in the chanting of the holy name. So even Lord Chaitanya waited till he was initiated by Ishwarapuri to actually perform the very reason why, the pastime, the very reason why he even incarnated. One of the main reasons is to distribute the chanting of the holy name. So when he came back, he started performing Nagar Sankirtan. He started performing Sankirtan in the home of Srivas Thakur all night. And so when Lord Nityananda realized that his eternal brother had now manifested his pastimes of chanting the holy name, it was time for him to come. So Lord Nityananda came immediately to Navadvip, and he did not immediately meet Lord Chaitanya. He went to the house of Nandanacharya, and he was staying in the house of Nandanacharya. And Lord Chaitanya realized that his eternal brother, Lord Nityananda, is here. And so he told his associates, so Damodar and others, that I know Nityananda is here. Go and look for him and ask him to come here. And so all these associates of Lord Chaitanya looked everywhere for Lord Nityananda, but they couldn't find him. They said there was no such person here. But Lord Chaitanya knew that he is in the house of Nandanacharya. So Lord Chaitanya went running to the house of Nandanacharya. And there he called out to Nityananda, "Nitai, Nitai." And Nityananda came out. And they embraced each other, their long lost brothers. And it was such a wonderful pastime. And everybody was ecstatic to see how wonderfully these two brothers were interacting with each other. Lord Chaitanya, who was much younger than Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu, who was the most wonderful renunciant. They both were embracing each other like anything. And from there began this beautiful connection between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. It got revived. The connection was always there. They were eternally connected. But then they started associating, and all these beautiful pastimes that come about in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so this one beautiful section that comes in the Madhya Lila, in the third chapter of the Madhya Lila, is after Lord Chaitanya takes sannyas. So only very few people are told about this. Lord Nityananda is one of them. And Lord Chaitanya takes sannyas. And he is ready to go to Vrindavan. As soon as he takes sannyas, he wants to go to Vrindavan. So he starts literally running. And for 3 days continuously, he is running in some direction. He has no idea which way he's even going. It's not like he stopped and asked the way, which is the way to Vrindavan, and let me go that way. He just starts running in ecstasy. And he has no idea which is what is day, what is night. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? He has absolutely no external consciousness. He's simply running towards what he believes to be Vrindavan. And then finally, after 2 days, he comes to a point where he sees some boys. And so Lord Nityananda is actually following him at that point. And then he's followed by Lord Nityananda and Gopinath Acharya and Chandrasekhar Acharya. A couple of devotees are following Lord Gauranga. Nityananda Prabhu, Jagadananda Pandit, Gopinath Acharya, and Chandrasekhar Acharya. So these 4 devotees are following Lord Chaitanya as he's going into the forest. And Lord Nityananda goes and approaches these boys who are playing and tells them to chant Hare Krishna. So when you see this person coming, loudly chant Hare Krishna. And they said, okay, we will do it. And then he tells the boys, and this person will ask you the way to Vrindavan. He'll ask you which way is Vrindavan. And when he asks you that question, then what you should do is you should show him the direction towards Shantipur. So direct him towards Shantipur. Don't let him go towards Vrindavan. Direct him towards Shantipur. So the boys said, okay, we'll do that. And so what happens is the point is Lord Chaitanya comes to that location where these boys are playing. And as soon as they see Lord Chaitanya, they all start chanting Hare Krishna. And so when they see Lord Chaitanya, they start chanting Hare Krishna, and so Lord Chaitanya is very pleased. He's ecstatic, and he starts chanting and dancing with them. And then he asked these boys, which is the way to Shantipur? Which is the way to Vrindavan? And these boys point him in the direction of Shantipur. They tell him that you just follow this river, and you keep following the river, and you will come to Vrindavan. So Lord Chaitanya is in ecstasy. He continues to follow the path of the Ganga, walks towards what he believes to be Vrindavan, but actually he goes towards Shantipur. And when he reaches close to Shantipur, Nityananda Prabhu also sends Chandrasekhar Acharya to the house of Advaita Acharya to give him advance warning that Lord Chaitanya is actually coming towards you. So he tells him, why don't you come on a boat and bring some dry clothes, because Lord Chaitanya, has no external consciousness now. He's going to take a bath in the river, and he's going to be fully wet. So you bring some dry kopin and chadar and clothes for him, and you come. So Nityananda Prabhu says that to Chandrasekhar Acharya. And so then Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya are going towards Shantipur. And so Nityananda Prabhu is asked by Lord Chaitanya, how far is Vrindavan? And Nityananda Prabhu tells him that you've already reached. This is the river Yamuna. And this beautiful river Yamuna is what you're seeing. And so Lord Chaitanya is in so much ecstasy that he's reached Yamuna that he jumps into the water. And he offers his obeisances. And he sings this very beautiful prayer. I mean, many of you may have heard this prayer. It's a very beautiful prayer to Lord to the river Yamuna that Lord Chaitanya says. This word prayer is Chidananda Bhano Sadananda Suno Para Prema Pratri Prava Brahma Gatri Aghanam Lavitri Jagat Kshema Dhatri Pavitri Kriyano Vapur Mitra Putri. So this is a very beautiful prayer to Yamuna that Lord Chaitanya prays. And this is like He says, "O river Yamuna, you're the blissful spiritual water that gives love to the son of Nanda Maharaj. You're the same as the water of the spiritual world, for you can vanquish all our offenses and the sinful reactions incurred in life. You're the creator of all auspicious things in the world. O daughter of the sun god, kindly purify us by your pious activities." Very beautiful prayer. I just wanted to chant that. So now, when he comes into the water and comes out, he suddenly sees Advaitacharya on a boat. So when Lord Chaitanya sees Advaitacharya, he's a little confused. And he says, "Advaitacharya, how did you know that I was going to Vrindavan? And how did you come to Vrindavan? You're in Shantipur, and I was running towards Vrindavan, but how did you realize that I was going to be in Vrindavan? And how did you get to Vrindavan so quickly?" So innocently asked him that question. And and this is so beautiful, when Advaitacharya is asked this question, he says, "My Lord, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan." Acharya, this verse is there in the Chaitanya, in the Adi Leela, Madhya Leela, chapter 3, where he says, "Acharya kahe, tumi yaha shai Vrindavan." "Oh my Lord, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan." So when he hears that, Lord Chaitanya realizes that he is not in Vrindavan. He's actually in Shantipur. So Lord Chaitanya tells Advaitacharya, this is the verse in the Madhya Leela. He says, "Prabhu kahe, Nityananda amara vanchila, Ganga ke aniya mora, Yamuna kahila." He says, "This Nityananda Prabhu has cheated me. Nityananda Prabhu has cheated me. He brought me to Ganga and told me this is Yamuna. He has cheated me." So this is the beautiful, playful mood between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Of course, there's a lot of different pastimes in terms of this whole pastime of how Lord Nityananda stayed in the house of Advaitacharya. And it's such a humorous pastime as well, where there's a great description of the huge quantities of prasad that was prepared by Advaitacharya. Huge mounds of rice and so many different varieties of sabjis, and everything was prepared. And Lord Nityananda comes there and says, "I've been starving for 3 days, and it looks like I have to starve for another 3 days because there's no food." And there's huge quantities of food. And Lord Chaitanya is so overwhelmed by this prasad, he tells Advaitacharya that anybody who serves Lord Krishna so gorgeously has my eternal gratitude. In contrast, Lord Nityananda is telling Advaitacharya that I've been hungry for so many days, and it looks like I have to be hungry for another few days because you've not really cooked any food at all. That's the Lord. So Advaitacharya tells him that, "Don't be so greedy. I'm just a poor Brahmana. Whatever I'm offering you, please just take it, and don't be so greedy." So this is a very playful pastime. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because not many devotees actually talk about those pastimes when they glorify Lord Nityananda. But I just wanted to bring out the sweet mood and the sweet relationship between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and Lord Nityananda and Advaitacharya, in terms of how they interacted with each other. And all of Chaitanya Charitamrita is just about the sweet interactions between these devotees. So the pastime is one part of it, but the understanding of the mood that Lord Chaitanya had with Lord Nityananda, and Lord Nityananda had with Advaitacharya and other devotees, the kind of interaction that Lord Chaitanya had with Haridas Thakur. And then, of course, Haridas Thakur and Lord Nityananda were constant companions. The pastime of Jagai Madhai was all during the preaching exploits of Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur would constantly complain, of course in a playful mood, that this Nityananda is going to get me killed. Every time he goes and does something that just unpredictable. Lord Nityananda is called Avadhuta. Avadhuta means one who is literally unpredictable. What he will do, nobody can predict. And his pastimes are so, especially in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, if you read Chaitanya Bhagavat, of course, Vrindavan Das Thakur was a disciple of Nityananda. So there's a lot of glorification of Lord Nityananda in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So if you really want to get into the nectar of the glories of Lord Nityananda, I would recommend reading Chaitanya Bhagavat. In fact, Chaitanya Bhagavat it also ends very much with the glorification of Lord Nityananda. So unlike the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Antyalila is spoken quite a bit, and it's a very painful part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the final pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are also described. But Vrindavan Das Thakur does not describe any of the later pastimes of Lord Chaitanya because it is too painful for him to even discuss it. So the Chaitanya Bhagavat actually ends quite abruptly. We've spoken about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and the Madhya Leela, and suddenly it'll transition to glories of Lord Nityananda, and it'll just end. So when you read the Chaitanya Bhagavat, the Shesha Leela of the Shesha Khanda of the last part of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it just ends with the glorification of Nityananda. So anyway, based on your order, I abruptly tried to describe some pastimes of Lord Nityananda. Hopefully, it was not too all over the place. And thank you for instructing me to speak about Lord Nityananda. Tadaka Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'm so glad to hear your nectarian narrations. Very sweet to hear. I wish there was time for lots more. And I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned a little bit about the pastimes between Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur. I love to hear those stories. The days when they were Sankirtan buddies, and Haridas Thakur was sometimes put off by the extraordinary activities of Lord Nityananda, who often behaved like an avaduta, with no regard to any sort of social convention. Would you happen to be able to recall any of the stories of Lord Nityananda ecstatically dancing with such intensity that he actually danced out of his clothing?
Yeah, all those pastimes are very much in the Chaitanya Bhagavat more than anywhere else, where he had no external consciousness when he was in ecstasy. And so he didn't really worry about social conventions about, oh, you have to be dressed in a certain way, or your dhoti has to be, when you dance, your dhoti has to stay on, right? So when we dance widely, like sometimes we dance widely in kirtan, right? Especially, I remember seeing the videos of His Holiness Bhakti Tirth Maharaj in his young days, and those were some wild kirtan dancing. That reminds me of how maybe a semblance of how Nityananda Prabhu might have danced. But one of the rules of even wild dancing is that your clothes must stay on. You cannot be so engrossed in dancing that all your dhoti falls off, your kopin falls off, and you're just dancing. Right? So there's some social etiquette that we have to follow. But Nityananda Prabhu was not so concerned about. It requires a lot of faith and a lot of understanding the position of Lord Nityananda to actually even read those pastimes. Because when Lord Nityananda came to Advaita Acharya's house, and he became like a baby, and he would be breastfed by the wife of Advaita Acharya. But then Lord Nityananda was not a child; he was a fully grown adult. So when somebody reads that pastime, it seems very strange that how can an adult be breastfed by a mother? It is strange, but we cannot read these pastimes of Lord Nityananda with our mundane consciousness. And this kind of warning is given to us over and over again by Vrindavan Das Thakur. And he keeps saying that do not think of Lord Nityananda as a mundane personality. And same thing Kaviraj Goswami also says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that when you hear these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, that all of a sudden this mango tree came and it manifested and mangoes were given, or all these different pastimes, please do not think of these as exaggerations. Please do not think of these as imaginations, or please do not question the character or personality of Lord Nityananda, because that will lead us to live permanently in hell. These are not my words. These are the words of Kaviraj Goswami and Vrindavan Das Thakur. So they warn us that you have to understand the position of Lord Nityananda, which is why the Chaitanya Charitamrita does not immediately begin with the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So the first Adi Leela, first chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita does not begin with the birth of Lord Chaitanya. Kaviraj Goswami spends 7, 8 long chapters, actually not 7, right from chapter 1 through chapter 12 of Adi Leela is just an explanation of Chaitanya Tattva, Nityananda Mahatva, Advaita Tattva, Pancha Tattva, and the elaboration of the first 14 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first 12 chapters, and chapters 13 through 17 very quickly summarize the entire Adi Leela of Lord Chaitanya, right from his birth to sannyas. The first 24 years of Lord Chaitanya are summarized in just 5 chapters in Adi Leela. And Madhya Leela is the biggest section, that's where the biggest focus of Kaviraj Goswami is. The whole Madhya Leela describes the middle 6 years where Lord Chaitanya traveled and everything else. And the last 18 years are summarized in the Antya Leela. So think about it, right? The first 24 years are just in 5 chapters of Adi Leela, because the first 12 chapters are not about the pastimes, but about the position of Lord Chaitanya and others. And the reason why that emphasis is there is because unless you get a firm grounding on who Lord Chaitanya is and who Lord Nityananda is, when you hear their pastimes, especially the Avadhut pastimes of Lord Nityananda, you will misunderstand, or you might judge. But if you know who Lord Nityananda is, then there's no question of us judging Lord Nityananda. That's why the emphasis on the tattva is so much in the beginning. I think we're out of time, Prabhuji. I can go on for another 2 hours on this topic, but I'm respectful. I want to be respectful of time. So thank you for giving me the opportunity on this most auspicious day to speak a little bit about Lord Nityananda for my own purification. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was ecstatic. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.